This video is on Module 3 for TES 540. This is Professor Ruth Maas. Wanted to go over a few things that you need to do for Module 3. And one is threaded discussion number 1 on student work. It says here to create and submit examples of student work for 6 strategies taken from chapters 4, 5, and 6. Be sure to include one or more strategies that focus on advanced thinking and that focus on collaboration and interaction. Remember that these strategies are part of your unit lesson plan and that you should have meaningful activities for your objectives. So what you're supposed to post is you can take a picture of some student examples and post those, attach it to your post, and please answer the following question in your post. How did you incorporate the higher order thinking questions for your lesson plan with your selected strategies? Okay? Now here's threaded discussion 2A. This has 2 parts, 2A and 2B. And first we'll go over 2A. You're going to take notes in the lesson observation form that you can find on Blackboard. And you're supposed to watch a video in your content area from the online source listed there. And be sure to include online lesson citations on your observation form. Then you're supposed to attach a scanned or photographed copy of your lesson plan observation form with your post. Okay? And that's all you need to do for that part, Part A. Part B is actually the pre-observation form. And it says to revise the lesson plan you created and include 3 teaching strategies. These strategies will relate to introducing the topic, building background, and/or interaction of students. You're supposed to use strategies from the text from chapters 1 to 6 in your pre-observation form. So again, please attach a scanned or photographed copy of your pre-observation for video lesson presentation form with your post. Here is a copy of the pre-observation for video lesson presentation form. It asks you to put in your name and who is observing the video lesson, observation of video lesson to be performed by. That's probably you. List 1 content standard that you saw in the video lesson and 3 vocabulary words, 3 or more, with the definitions, please. Then list 1, 2, or 3 content objectives, which should start with students will be able to. And write down 2 higher order thinking skills questions. List the visuals or materials you need for your lesson. And list 3 strategies that you're going to be using from chapters 1 to 6. This is the last part of the form, and you're supposed to check the SIOP components you want the observer to pay close attention to. So I'll let you read those and check them over. One thing I want to go over with this module is developing as a professional educator, which is one of the teacher performance expectations. And under this expectation, there are actually several parts. And I want to make sure we go over those, so I'm going to briefly go over these. It says beginning teachers reflect on their own teaching practice and level of subject matter and pedagogical knowledge to plan and implement instruction that can improve student learning. So, to look at this a little bit closer, to reflect on your teaching practice means to constantly look back on what you've taught and evaluate how you could teach it better. And the goal of this is not to improve your teaching, which it will, but it's to improve student learning. The only way to measure if you've improved student learning is to take some type of assessment. So that's your measure, not just if you think this would work better, or if so-and-so said that would be better, but we need to have data-driven results. Number 2 is beginning teachers recognize their own values and implicit and explicit biases. The ways in which these values and implicit and explicit biases may positively and negatively affect teaching and learning, and work to mitigate any negative impact on teaching and learning of students. I think you need to realize that all of us, in some way or form, have biases, and that we need to do things that will eliminate these biases while we're teaching. One of the things that you can do is simple thing is to make cards and put each student's name on a card, and when you're picking students to answer questions, to shuffle those cards up and pick randomly or in a certain order those students, so you don't overlook any students. Number 3 is beginning teachers establish professional learning goals and make progress to improve their practice by routinely engaging in communication and inquiry with colleagues. My tip to you is to write those down. Every year I would write down my professional learning goals, what I was going to do better, and how I was going to do it. And I shared those with my principal, and that was part of part of my evaluation every year. Number 4 is beginning teachers demonstrate how and when to involve other adults and to communicate effectively with peers and colleagues, families, and members of the larger school community to support teacher and student learning. I think that it's always a good idea to involve parents, admin, other teachers, peers, and colleagues, however you can, to gain more information on how to best teach the students and how they learn best. That's very important. That can be done in a staff meeting, just a casual meeting. One thing I will alert you to is that never talk about students or student learning out in the open. That's a place for a conference room, a setting where it's private, and that's just a tip for you. Developing as a professional educator. 5 is beginning teachers demonstrate professional responsibility for all aspects of student learning and classroom management, including responsibility for the learning outcomes of all students, along with appropriate concerns and policies regarding the privacy, health, and safety of students and families. Most of these professional responsibilities should be listed in your faculty handbook, and there should be guidelines for your particular responsibility for policies on privacy, health, and safety, communicating with families, those sorts of things. If you don't see that listed in a faculty handbook, then ask your principal. Ask your administration, what are these policies? Also, what are your professional responsibilities for, say, student learning? What are the school policies for classroom management? And what are the goals for the learning outcomes for students at your school? Number 5, continued, is beginning teachers conduct themselves with integrity and model ethical conduct for themselves and others. And I'd say that as a teacher, you need to be a role model. And one of the things that you should not do is if you are on social media, be careful to post only things that you're proud of posting, that you would be okay with parents of your students seeing, or your students seeing. Otherwise, it's not really something that you really should post. And I would advise against being friends on Facebook with any of your students. It's just not a good idea. 6, beginning teachers understand and enact professional roles and responsibilities as mandated reporters. And a mandated reporter is if you see something that should be reported to Child Protective Services, then you need to report it. You need to comply with all laws concerning professional responsibilities, professional conduct, and moral fitness, including the responsible use of social media and other digital platforms and tools, which we just went over. There is usually, or should be, a policy in the faculty handbook about being a mandated reporter, and there's usually some type of a workshop you'll go through learning more about mandated reporting. So what do beginning teachers need to do? It's all outlined there in the 6 steps, but here's kind of a wrap-up that's also listed in the teacher performance expectations, is that beginning teachers articulate and practice the profession's code of ethics and professional standards of practice, and they uphold relevant laws and policies, including but not limited to those related to professional conduct and moral fitness, use of digital content and social media, education and rights of all stakeholders, including students with disabilities, English learners, and those who identify as LGBTQ+. Privacy, health, and safety of students, families, and school professionals, mandated reporting, and students' acts of intolerance and harassment such as bullying, racism, and sexism. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.